Hi, this is Bob Viden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittlesportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Avacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's A-B-A-C-O. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, this island comes, I know, only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Now hear this. Man your battle stations.
The Obama attack on our Constitution continues. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com and join J.D. Bonnier and Christina Lamb and hundreds of Reagan conservative commandos who demand our country return to its founding documents and principles. We are part of the nation's oldest and largest GOP volunteer organization, the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. We register voters, endorse conservative candidates, and dig deep to give you the truth on the big issues. We are fighting to do what Lincoln proclaimed 150 years ago. Let the people know the facts and the nation will be free. Help support the Conservative Commando Radio Show with your donation today. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com. INRASuperPAC.com.
Now hear this. Man your battle stations.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360 and WIFI 1460. This is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos Radio Show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And welcome, everybody. Welcome, fellow patriots. And yes, welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, and around the world on the internet via our internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And joining me today, as she usually does on Thursdays, but yes, this is Tuesday, and she's here just the same, is my very good friend from the battle-born state of Nevada, Sharon Engel. Sharon, welcome to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. Oh, you know what, John? We've got to turn all the mics on. Sharon, welcome to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
Thank you, Rick. It's a pleasure to be back.
Well, you know, we let that John Forsyth Jr. off for a few days, and I don't know where he goes. He just goes on these binges, and he just leaves me. So last night was one of these binges where he takes off for places unknown. So when he gets back, we have to retrain him all the bells and whistles of the Conservative Commandos Radio Show, including turning on all the mics, because there's actually 2 mic buttons that we have to press in order to communicate. So, Sharon, it's great to have you with us.
Well, you know, it's been so long since I've been on this show. Maybe you'll have to retrain me, too. So we'll see how this goes, as you say.
All right,
Live radio, right?
Right. Live radio. So, Sharon, you and I haven't talked for a while. You know, I know you've been, you were out busy, you were out gallivanting, you were out in the great state of Alaska. I know you did one show with Darian Novak since that time, but I wanted to talk with you a little bit about your travels up to the Great North Way.
Well, as you know, I'm the president of the National Federation of Republican Assemblies, and in December and January, we were able to put together a Republican Assembly in Alaska, the AKRA, Alaska Republican Assembly, and they invited me, Pastor Rafael Cruz, who is Senator Ted Cruz's father, and several others. Willis Lee, one of the fellows that we interviewed at CPAC, who is also a vice president in the Republican Assembly, the National Republican Assembly. So we were all speakers at their conference. We, at the National Federation of Republican Assemblies, encourage grassroots to endorse when they have great candidates in their area, and that endorsement then goes all the way up to the national level. So when the Alaska Republican Assembly endorses Joe Miller for U.S. Senate, he gets the endorsement not only of Alaska, but also of the National Federation of Republican Assemblies, and we are proud to announce that we have endorsed Joe Miller for U.S. Senate in Alaska.
That is really great news, Sharon. Joe is a real solid guy. I've had the opportunity to meet with him a couple of times down at CPAC. We've had him here as a guest on the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. And you know what, people, if you're looking for a true leader coming out of the state of Alaska, I know the first name on your mind probably would be Sarah Palin, but in my opinion, it's that Joe Miller.
It is. I know that there's lots of talk about what happened in 2010 with Lisa Murkowski and the whole swirl of controversy that went around with the NRSC and different factions of the party that went in there to endorse Lisa Murkowski as an independent against Joe Miller after he clearly defeated her in the primary. And we've also had those kinds of speculations, of course, since then with what would happen perhaps with Dave Brett and Eric Cantor in Virginia along those same lines. Now, it looks like Eric Cantor is much more honorable than Lisa Murkowski, but it's an interesting scenario, to say the least. And I've seen that Sarah Palin has come out and endorsed in other Senate races across the country, so I hope that she will join the National Federation of Republican Assemblies in her endorsement as well of Joe Miller.
You know, Sharon, how do I say this? If she truly is the conservative that she wants everyone to believe, I think that this would be a step in the right direction.
Well, I believe that's true. Having met all three of the candidates while I was up there in Alaska, we don't do these endorsements lightly. We make sure that we've vetted these candidates, know exactly who the opposition is, what they stand for, what they've done, what their record speaks of, and we then encourage our chapters as well to do their homework and not make these endorsements lightly. We don't endorse in every race. We only endorse in those races where we have a true constitutional and, might I say, faith-based, trustworthy conservative. That's what everyone wants, is someone in office who's trustworthy, who really says what they mean and then does what they say. So we have, as you say, vetted Joe Miller and his two opponents, and we found Joe Miller to be exactly the person that Republican assemblies across the nation can get behind. So we're encouraging our members across the nation to send their donations to Joe Miller right now and make sure that we have conservatives coming out of primaries for these Senate races.
Well, there you go. A good conservative guy, solid background, military background, great father, 8 children. 8 children has that Joe Miller.
Yes, that's
he
true.
definitely has a vested interest in the direction that this country goes. I think
that's right. In our future, he's contributed to the future, and now he wants to make sure that future has a future.
Right. So, Sharon, also on your trip to Alaska, I know it wasn't all business. You had a little bit of pleasure in it.
It was a lot of pleasure. Actually, I would say that my husband and I were blessed every day. We were able to tour Alaska with Pastor Rafael Cruz and his ministry. He, as you know, preaches to preachers. He's convinced that we need another Black Robe Regiment in this country. And as you know, the Black Robe Regiment was a group of pastors during the Revolutionary War that not only preached to their congregations, but then took off their black robes. Some even kept them on, but took off those robes and joined the revolutionary effort in leading their congregations into battle. And you live in that part of the world where Lexington Concord, the shot heard round the world was fired, and I don't know how many of our listeners know that, but this was a pastor and his congregation that met the British there at the bridge, and they said, we won't fire the first shot, but we certainly will defend ourselves. And so they had come to church, heard the message from the pulpit, and then went out to stand the line and protect their homes that morning.
Indeed they did. Indeed they would. And, of course, when you talk about Pastor Cruz, you are referring to the father of Senator Ted Cruz.
That's right. So when we talk about Senator Ted Cruz, we look at where he comes from, and we know that this is a man of integrity in Pastor Rafael Cruz. He's an immigrant, a naturalized citizen from Cuba, and he knows what socialism looks like. He knows how it feels to be under a socialist regime. He was there and escaped from Castro, and he's very outspoken about what is going on in this country and about what will heal this land. So his message is just pertinent and relevant for today. And everyone, not just pastors, but everyone should hear this message. It's interesting to me that Pastor Cruz's heart, though, is to target the churches, because he feels that 25% of church-going people in America vote. And that's sad.
That is sad. That is very sad. I'm a little bit surprised to hear those numbers. Only 25% of church-going people vote?
That's right.
Wow.
It's the same as our country. The secular society in our country, only 25% of them vote too. So when you get right down to it, a mere majority of 12% plus 1, or 12.5% plus 1, is electing our presidents, our congressmen, our state legislators, our city councils, our county commissions, our mayors, our school board, our board of supervisors, every elected official in this nation. A small minority has elected them, and now we wonder why we have such trouble in our land. It's because we can't get a grip. Our society cannot do the most important privilege and duty that our founding fathers left us, and that's to go vote.
Amen. And with that, Sharon, we're going to take a break. You're listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and Rick Trader. We'll be right back in about 2 minutes.
I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I... Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811, PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Angle and Rick Trader. And a program note, if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening, log on to patriotsride.org, patriotsride.org. And at 5 p.m. when we end our live broadcast, if you would like to hear a replay of yesterday's show, log on to CPRWorldwideMedia.com. You can also hear a rebroadcast of today's show tomorrow afternoon at vigilantlibertyradio.us. And don't forget, you can now hear our show anytime, day or night, from any telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Now, this is a toll call, so you call from a phone that you have unlimited access, but there are no additional charges. Sharon, there is something I want to get into, but what I'd like to do first and kind of move through it quickly is let's talk about our guest today. In a little bit, I'm going to be talking with Mike Peranzino. He's the communications director of ROC Exposed. And Mike has written an op-ed in the Washington Times entitled "Big Labor Takes Aim at Tipping. The unions want a cut of waitresses' pay." Another move by the unions, Sharon, to take more and more control of our country. Sharon, who are you going to be speaking with?
Well, at 4 o'clock or 4:05, and about that time, we're going to be talking with Guy Benson, who's a Fox News contributor, and he's going to be talking about Hillary Clinton. Of course, we're looking at Hillary Clinton possible run in 2016 and all the things that she's been doing to get in the limelight. But this is different. This is not just about Hillary Clinton. This is about something that I think will interest people. A rape victim has said Hillary Clinton put her through hell. So we want to hear what that's all about. And then at 4:35, William Jacobson is going to be talking to us about Scott Walker. Now, Scott Walker is one of those 2016 candidates, but what's more interesting is that William Jacobson has 2 websites. The websites are called Legal Insurrection and College Insurrection. Now, we know what insurrection means, but when he says it's legal to do this, that captures my attention, and that he wants to do it on college campuses even more so. And we need a leader for this legal insurrection. So I'm really interested in what William Jacobson means by that and what he thinks about Scott Walker.
All right. Sharon, I wanted to get on to this because, in my opinion, this is extremely important. There has been a lot of news lately about thousands of unaccompanied children finding their way to the United States from Central and South America. And for quite some time, people have been hollering, how did this happen? Why didn't we know? Barack Obama even says, oh, well, it surprised me. But Sharon Angle, I have an article that was written by Michelle Hickford, and she had it up on Allen West website, and it's entitled Feds Advertised for Escort Services for Unaccompanied Alien Children in January. According to a help wanted request for information posted on fedbizops.gov, the feds were looking for vendors to help escort unaccompanied alien children in January of this year. The specific vendor requirement state is seeking the service, and it's from Immigration and Customs Enforcement, that's ICE, is seeking the services of a responsible vendor that shares the philosophy of treating all UCA with dignity and respect while adhering to the standard of operating procedures and policies that allow for the effective, efficient, and incident-free travel. The contractor shall provide unarmed escort staff, including management supervision, manpower, training, certifications, license, drug testing, equipment, and supplies necessary to, and get this, Sharon Angle, provide on-demand escort services for non-criminal, non-delinquent, unaccompanied alien children ages infant to 17 years of age, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Transport will be required for either category of UCA or individual juveniles, to include both male and female juveniles. There will be approximately 65,000 in total. 25% local ground transportation, 25% ICE charter, and 50% via commercial airline. Now, Sharon Angle, the question is, how in January did the U.S. government know that up to 65,000 unaccompanied illegal alien children would be arriving on our borders if this is a surprise to Barack Obama and this administration? Explain that one to me, Sharon Angle, please.
Well, I think Michelle said it all. She says, please send me the evidence that this is not an orchestrated invasion. Please send me the evidence. There is no evidence that it's not orchestrated. And in fact, she's found the evidence that shows that it is orchestrated. And we all are so curious now. Why would the president deny it? But then why would he want this to happen anyway? You know, all we've ever wanted in this country really is secured borders. And yet that seems to be the least important thing on this administration's mind. And the cover-up is just blatant. We saw that this is really, truly important to the American people by what happened in Virginia with Eric Cantor and his race against David Brat. It was obvious that Eric Cantor has taken up this mantra for amnesty, and we saw the falling out that Marco Rubio had over the same issue of trying to edge towards amnesty, and now we see Rand Paul working with the establishment on a what we feel like is probably an amnesty type program. What's going on? It seems to be on both sides of the aisle. And what is the purpose, Rick Trader? Why are they doing this? Could it be all because they want their votes? Is that what's going on? What's going on, Rick Trader?
Well, I believe that's the basis of it, Sharon Angle. I think the Democrats see this as padding their base. You know, when you bring in, it says here 65,000 illegal immigrant children, I think the numbers are already above and beyond that already. There are 3 former military bases in the Southwest that are packed with these children. To me, it's got to be orchestrated. And for each one of those children, Sharon Angle, I think the idea of bringing the children in is, well, the children is here. We must let their parents follow. That children must be reunited with their parents. But you know what I say, Sharon? I say these people abandon their children. And if you or I, if I had children, I know you do, but if I or you abandon our children, we'd be sent to jail. We wouldn't be rewarded by being allowed to come in this country. In fact, as felons, we wouldn't even be able to vote. And this is what's going on here, Sharon Angle. They're enticing these people to send their children here in hopes that they will become residents and that their parents, their brothers, their sisters, their aunts, their uncles, grandmothers, their grandfathers, the entire extended families will be allowed to come here and take up legal residence in this country. Sharon Angle, I would also like to know who is paying for these ads in these newspapers in Central and South America, enticing these children to come up here with free food, free education, free housing, free activities. Where I would like to see the money trail. I'd like to see where that trail goes to, Sharon. Sharon, we got about 30 seconds. I know you wanted to comment again.
Well, I just wanted to ask, and where do these poor children live? Who do they live with?
In Obama's orphanages.
5,000 of them without families now. These children are left alone in our country. Maybe they are thinking about bringing their parents, but what if they don't get reunited? What happens then?
And what about all the atrocities? What about all the atrocities that happen to these children on the way here? Hey, Sharon, with that, we got to take our break, and you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and Rick Trader. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. that of WNJC 1360 and around the world on the internet via our new internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, VigilantLibertyRadio.us, and don't forget to check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioshow.com and CCRShow.com. Today's show is brought to you by the First Amendment, and it is protected by the Second.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811, PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Viden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittlesportshop.com.
The Obama attack on our Constitution continues. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com and join J.D. Manier and Christina Lamb and hundreds of Reagan conservative commandos who demand our country return to its founding documents and principles. We are part of the nation's oldest and largest GOP volunteer organization, the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. We register voters, endorse conservative candidates, and dig deep to give you the truth on the big issues. We are fighting to do what Lincoln proclaimed 150 years ago. Let the people know the facts and the nation will be free. Help support the Conservative Commando Radio Show with your donation today. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com. INRASuperPAC.com.
Now hear this. Man your battle stations.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, fellow patriots. Welcome back once again to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. And a program note, If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening, Eastern Time, log on to patriotsride.org, patriotsride.org. And at 5 p.m., when our live broadcast ends, if you want more of the Conservative Commandos radio show, tune in to CPRWorldwideMedia.com for a rebroadcast of yesterday's show. And tomorrow afternoon, if you'd like to hear another replay of today's show, place for that is at VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And we do have our first guest of the day with us, and Mike Paranzino is the Communications Director for ROC Exposed, a consumer watchdog concerned about unions' impact on America's restaurants. ROC Exposed pays particular attention to the Restaurant Opportunities Center, a labor union front group with chapters in Philadelphia, New York, Los Angeles, and many other cities. Mike, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show. Great to have you with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Mike, you have written an article, and we've asked you to join us today to talk about it. It's appearing in the Washington Times, titled "Big Labor Takes Aim at Tipping. The Unions want a cut of waitresses' pay." Mike, you start out this article by saying the labor movement has found a new enemy, and this one may surprise you. So tell us, Mike, who is this new enemy of the labor movement?
Yes, you're right. The labor movement is targeting tipping, that American practice where you tip your server or someone else who does personal services for you. And they've decided that is an affront to fairness and justice, and they'd like a piece of the action. So yes, they're now coming after tips.
You know, Mike, my feeling about tipping has turned 180 degrees in my lifetime about many things, and tipping is one of them. There was a time in my life I hated tipping. I resented going into a restaurant and leaving a tip. I thought, after all, these people are paid to work here in first place. Why should I have to tip? But then, Mike, I had an occasion to travel outside this country to a couple of places where tipping wasn't expected. One of those places was Jamaica, and the other was Greece. And in going there and finding out that, tipping wasn't expected, I was pretty excited until something happened, Mike. I found out how absolutely atrocious the service was when people didn't have any initiative or motivation to wait on you, Mike. You know, in Greece, I found out that the only place you would ever get good service is if the person waiting on you actually owned that restaurant. In Jamaica, my God, you'd wait forever for service, and when you did get service, the waiter, waitress was usually not that nice. So my feeling about tipping actually has turned 180 degrees, Mike. And now I think that tipping is a very good thing. And if you notice when you go into a restaurant, and the waiter, waitress actually helps make the event pleasurable. And why are they doing it, Mike? Not because they're all that nice of a person, probably because they expect, or they're hoping, that by giving you good service, you're going to show your gratitude by leaving a nice tip.
Well, it's a fascinating story you tell, and it points to the fact that, yes, tipping is essentially pay for performance. It's merit pay, and that helps the customers, as you point out. It also helps the servers. It helps many of them live middle-class lives that they would not be able to achieve if they had simply a flat salary. So the tipping system works in America. It does provide better service, and it does, again, for the better servers, it provides them a solid middle-class life, even if they don't have a perfect resume or perfect educational pedigree like maybe the labor bosses have.
Mike, in your article, you bring up a couple of names here, and I'd like you to tell our audience about Saru Jaraman. She's the co-director of Restaurant Opportunities Center United. Tell us about Saru and also what the Restaurant Opportunities Center is.
Sure. Well, the Restaurant Opportunity Center, or ROC as it's known, is a labor union front group. It was started after the 9/11 terrorist attacks, when Windows on the World workers who were fortunate enough not to be working that day and survived the attacks found themselves out of work. And the Hotel and Restaurant Employees Union, starting out with a nice gesture, created an office to try to help them get back on their feet. The union folks installed Saru and a colleague as in charge of it, and they quickly realized that this could become a new model, because unions have had very poor success in unionizing restaurants. They realized this could be organized as a nonprofit worker center and offer things like job training to help win grants, including from the taxpayers, by the way.
Job training.
It could turn...
You know, Mike, I think the best place for somebody to get job training in the restaurant industry is you go to a restaurant, you fill out an application, and you start by washing dishes and bussing tables.
Well, yes, and that certainly points to there's a whole industry with Labor Department grants using our taxpayer money which gets funneled to groups like ROC and other left-wing groups. So we're essentially subsidizing these programs of questionable merit that again, they turn around then and use these grants to mobilize and these folks for the union agenda. I should send you, in fact, I'm going to make a point to send you some of the materials they produced with one taxpayer-funded grant, which are sort of labor organizing materials masquerading as worker training. But
that's incredible.
So that's what ROC is, and they're in places like Philadelphia. And by the way, they have impact. Mayor Nutter in Philadelphia, for example, just put ROC on a paid sick leave task force. So he stacked the task force with pro-labor and union-aligned organizations, and they're going to no doubt come out with a report that we need a government mandate on mandatory paid leave. So ROC is able to do these things with a nice veneer of, look, we're a nonprofit worker center. But this is what they're actually doing in practice.
Well, this Ms. Jarman made a very interesting statement here. While tips are one of the very features that make restaurant jobs attractive to workers, she has no time for anything that suggests of pay for performance. It's a big union no-no, you write. And she also writes, ultimately, the system of tipping needs to go. Now, Mike, why do you think that pay for performance is so threatening to the unions?
Well, we've certainly seen across the board that unions are opposed to merit pay and pay for performance. We see it most notably in many cases with teachers, where unions have come out against all types of ratings of teachers and giving better teachers better pay. It's I hate to throw out the word, but we'll get to it in a moment. The other person at War on Tipping is the avowed socialist out of Seattle. It's the socialist notion to lower everyone to the lowest level and don't let anyone rise up above it. So unions are consistently against merit pay and pay for performance, and that's part of this war on tipping. And if we have time, we'll get to the second reason I think they're against it, which is they would prefer a flat salary, which makes payroll deduction for those restaurants they can unionize. It makes it seamless and less obvious to the employee, where you just have your pay taken right out of your paycheck, your dues.
Hey, Mike, we're up against a break. Could you hold through our break for us, please?
Yes, I will.
Mike, thank you very much. And we're going to take our break right now, and you're listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Engel and Rick Trader, coming to you from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station, the way we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern, and around the world on the internet via our internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRight.org, VigilantLibertyRadio.us, and don't forget you can now hear our show anytime, day or night, by calling 832-999-1199. Please don't go away. We're speaking with Mike Paranzino from Rock Exposed, talking about how big labor now is at war against tipping. Be right back.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, the smiling comes I know, only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Viden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Engel and Rick Trader. And our guest this segment is Mike Paranzino. He's the Communications Director for Rock Exposed, a consumer watchdog group. Mike, thanks for holding through the break because we do appreciate and value your time. Mike, also in this article of yours that's from the Washington Times entitled Big Labor Takes Aim at Tipping, the unions want a cut of waitresses' pay. This lady, Ms. German, not only did she say that we must eliminate tipping, but she also described tips as institutionalized sexism. Now, institutionalized sexism, I can barely say it, Mike, but is there any evidence? Can she pinpoint any evidence of this? Can she prove that males receive bigger tips? Or maybe females get bigger tips? Any proof of that, Mike, that it's sexist?
Well, she claims to have data that women tend to get bigger tips than men, and I guess she's standing up once for the men on that one.
Does she have evidence? She have any studies?
She purports to, although their studies are notorious. Rock doesn't do anonymous surveys where you get a random sample of people. They do what they call convenience surveys.
Yeah.
They seek out disgruntled people and throw it together and call it academic research. And most of their work is not peer-reviewed for the simple fact that it is sort of just compiled. I think they write the press release before they start the so-called research. So Rock's notorious for that kind of thing.
Yeah, cooking the books. Hey, Mike, before I throw it over to Sharon Engel, there's something else here that caught my attention. There's another person waging a war against tips, and it's Miss Stewart. She's the leader of a Seattle campaign to raise the minimum wage. So tell me, Mike, why would the people who are against tipping be allied with the people who are for raising the minimum wage? Can you make a connection with that one?
Well, yeah, she is the socialist. You may have heard Seattle elected an open, avowed, actually she calls herself a Marxist, but she ran on the Socialist Alternative Party's banner, and she won a seat in the Seattle City Council. Her husband, who she says she separated from, but lists in her financial disclosures, is a very successful engineer, an executive at Microsoft. So she's doing okay according to her financial disclosures, but she seems to not want the rest of us to arise like she and her husband have. So yes, she says she's of the people, and the tips again are unfair. But she is advocating a higher, again, government-mandated minimum wage. Despite the unemployment crisis we have in this country, they're trying to make it harder to hire American workers.
Well, Mike, why would those two groups ally?
Well,
you see, I have my own theory, Mike, and let me tell you what it is.
Okay, I want to hear yours. I mean,
my theory is that it is written into union. Number one, you get rid of tipping, and therefore waiters and waitresses become dependent on a salary or per hour salary, right? And if you get to raise the minimum wage, the cry is, oh, we have to make up for these people now that they don't get tips, so we have to raise the minimum wage. Now, isn't it written into most union contracts that every time the minimum wage goes up, so does the union rate?
That's correct. Many union contracts are some percentage of the minimum wage.
Well, there you go, Mike. That's my argument for why they're working together. Hey, Mike, on the other line, I do have Sharon Angle. She co-hosts with me here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and I know she wants to get into this conversation. Sharon?
That's right. Thank you so much, Mike, for being on our show today. I'm really interested in this because long ago I put myself through college on tips, and I have to say that's exactly what happened. My tips actually were more than my minimum wage salary at the time, which was $1.25 an hour. And I was able to make up for what I needed for my education with those tips. And there was no better paying job at the time than what I could do with that minimum wage and those tips combined. So it really is more than just an entry job. And as you point out in the article, so many people are able to do that. And it's because it almost creates an underground economy. Could you kind of talk about that? How the tips, a lot of them come in cash, really.
Well, yes. Now that's starting to change with widespread use of credit cards. But yes, many tips are cash. And as you say, tips allow people putting themselves through school or whatever it is that they need to generate income for, a hard work as a restaurant waiter or waitress, a server, gives you an opportunity through the tips to achieve your goals and move up the economic ladder. And that's why servers in Seattle have actually risen up against Rock and against the socialist city councilwoman and started a group called Tips or Wages, because they want to protect their tips for the very reasons you cite, because they have college bills to pay or other expenses, and tipped work is a great way to meet those obligations. And yes, much of it is cash, and harder for the union to get a hold of for mandatory union dues if they were to succeed in unionizing these restaurants.
That's right, and I know there was kind of an unsaid code among servers that, not only did we share our tips with those folks that supported us, like busboys and dishwashers and cooks, but the other thing that we did was, we determined how much of that we were actually going to declare as our wage, because we knew, and this is something that most people do know, that whatever you can keep from the government, you want to do that. So that was one of the things that we did, was we were careful not to report too much and get everybody in trouble over that. There is an interesting connection here, I guess, to the political world. Harry Reid used the culinary union quite easily and usefully during the 2010 campaign in Las Vegas. And so there is almost an underlying political agenda, if you will, for getting votes, because we know that these union workers are the worker bees for the Democrat Party. They bring out the voters. And so my next question to you then, you got into this hidden agenda that the unions have, and also that the right to work folks have, or should I say the unions have with their minimum wage. Could you just kind of go into that? You said if we had time, I would like to take that time now and just expose that whole hidden agenda.
Oh, well, sure, and we'll do it through looking at ROC specifically, which, again, is a union-founded, union ally, union front group. So ROC, we mentioned Philadelphia. They're on a task force that will no doubt say we need a new mandate of paid leave. Let's go to Washington. Just yesterday, the president held that photo op agenda for a working family summit of some sort, and who was one of the participants? ROC's Washington, D.C. office. Go to Michigan, where they've been pushing for a minimum wage increase, which was tied into a tough Senate battle there, where the GOP can pick up a Senate seat, and also a GOP governor facing a realistic a challenge, a serious challenge, the governor's race, and the minimum wage polls well. So ROC ran a minimum wage ballot measure that they were trying to get on the ballot there to help turn out election day turnout for the Senate race and the governor's race. So we see again and again how the unions are tied in, and the union front groups like worker centers like ROC are tied into this Democrat election year strategy. And I could go on and on in other cities as well. So they work so closely. ROC's been to the White House to talk minimum wage strategy late last year, and also through the agencies. Department of Labor is retweeting ROC tweets and posting YouTube videos from ROC's executives. So it's a very close alignment between the Democratic Party, the Obama administration, and these unions and union worker centers, all to drive this election year turnout.
Well, I thought it was very interesting, Mike, that these two women that have taken up this cause of garnishing these tips, as we can see here, neither one of them have ever worked for tips. You can tell they're an elitist group. Could you talk about what our real opponent is here? It's not the working class. It's not those folks that actually work for tips. Who is it, and how do they get involved? You know, it seems like to me, someone interested in tips should be somebody that's working for them, but that's not the case here.
Well, yes, and I'll tell you, it is irksome because you take Saru Jayaraman, the head of ROC United. Here she is railing against tips, which allow people to move from the working class or the unemployed from poverty, literally, to the middle class. And she happens to have a pretty great resume. Of course, she doesn't have to work in a restaurant. She has degrees from Harvard, from Yale Law School, from UCLA. She has a sweet gig at UC Berkeley, where the taxpayers subsidize her salary at Berkeley. So here she is with this wonderful resume. I applaud her for her academic achievements, but seems to be begrudging working class folks that want to earn some tips and kick themselves into the middle class. It's really offensive. And again, for the socialist in Seattle, whose husband is a Microsoft exec, which she was forced to disclose when she ran for office, that he has a six-figure salary and holds patents, and who knows how much Microsoft stock. Here they are attacking the working class, attacking working people, and trying to essentially bring them down. It's offensive.
Conservative Commandos Radio Show. We're speaking with Mike Peranzino, Communications Director for ROC Exposed. And Mike, very interesting in your conversation. You were talking with Sharon about tips. Let me tell you something else that tips does for people. Get you from paycheck to paycheck sometime. A lot of people that work in restaurants do work from paycheck to paycheck. Tips give you a little bit of money in between.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Mike, another thing, you were talking about this group out in Seattle. The tips are wages. And for anyone that doesn't think tips are wages, try telling that to the IRS come next April 15th, Mike.
Yeah, they may lose hard drives, incriminating hard drives.
There you go. Hey, Mike.
Track down your tip money.
Mike, we got to run in about 30 seconds. Please give our audience a way that they can find your article to read it in full, and also how to follow ROC Exposed.
Sure. Our website is rocexposed.com. You can also click on the contact page if you want to reach me directly. And Washington Times, if you click on opinions, I'm pretty sure that is still posted there, but you can also get to it from our website, rocexposed.com. Thanks so much for having me.
Mike Paranzino, thank you for joining us on the Conservative Commandos radio show. We enjoyed our time with you.
It's my pleasure.
All right, we are going to take a break. You're listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Engel and Rick Trader, coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia. The way we do, Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern, and around the world on the internet via our internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, and VigilantLibertyRadio.us. Please don't go away. On the other side, Sharon and I are going to be speaking with Guy Benson.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811, PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the Sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittlesportshop.com.
The Obama attack on our Constitution continues. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com and join J.D. Manier and Christina Lamb and hundreds of Reagan conservative commandos who demand our country return to its founding documents and principles. We are part of the nation's oldest and largest GOP volunteer organization, the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. We register voters, endorse conservative candidates, and dig deep to give you the truth on the big issues. We are fighting to do what Lincoln proclaimed 150 years ago. Let the people know the facts and the nation will be free. Help support the Conservative Commando Radio Show with your donation today. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com. INRASuperPAC.com.
Now hear this. Man your battle stations.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet via our internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, and VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And Sharon Engel, we do have our next guest with us, and the honor of the introduction is yours, so please take it away.
I am honored to introduce once again Guy Benson, who's the political editor of townhall.com and a Fox News contributor. Guy is a frequent guest on cable news networks, including Fox News and CNBC. And Guy also has his own radio talk show, The Guy Benson Show, which now airs at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Washington, D.C.'s AM 1260 WRC, and at 7 p.m. Central Time on AM 560, The Answer in Chicago. Guy, welcome to Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. And I have to say, whenever I cover our Senate Majority Leader, which is unfortunately more often than I'd like, I am constantly reminded of the fact that I wish I could be referring to you as Senator Engel, but it is still wonderful to be here with you.
Thank you, Guy. Those are very kind words, and I'm sure that he's serving a purpose. We all know who the villain is, don't we? And sometimes
there's
it's good.
Little doubt about that.
Sometimes it's good, especially in politics. We know who the bad guys are because so often the bad guys portray themselves as good guys, and we sometimes can't tell the difference. But you've written an article about someone who we're starting to see as more of a bad guy than we generally saw her. She was portrayed, I guess, as a victim when her husband was in the White House, and we've never really truly seen who Hillary Clinton is until she decided she wanted to be our president a few years back, and now she's making that bid again, it looks like. But there's an article out, Rape Victim Hillary Clinton Put Me Through Hell. Talk a little bit about how Hillary Clinton did this to a rape victim.
Okay, so the backdrop to this is there's a publication here in D.C. called the Washington Free Beacon. They do some investigative journalism, and they sent one of their reporters, Alana Goodman, down to Arkansas, and she explored an archive, a special collection in an archive in the University of Arkansas Public Library, and she mined this decades-old audio interview. It wasn't quite a radio interview, but it was a recorded audio interview that has never before been reported on. It never aired anywhere. The story that it was recorded for was never written. So Alana got her hands on this and heard it, and it harkens back to Hillary Clinton's early years as an attorney in 1975. She was then Hillary Rodham. And she was an up-and-coming young lawyer, and someone in the prosecutor's office called her up in 1975 and said, look, we have an accused child rapist who's accused of raping a 12-year-old girl, and he wants a female attorney. Will you take the case? And she agreed to take the case, and what ultimately ended up happening in the case was she was able to get this accused rapist off with a very significant plea bargain. He ended up serving less than a year behind bars. And let me just state at the outset, I have no problem whatsoever with Hillary deciding to take the case or zealously defending her client. That is her ethical and was her ethical obligation as an attorney, and in the American justice system, everyone deserves a defense. But what's interesting about this audio sound bite and this audio interview is it came from the mid-'80s. So this was Hillary Clinton reflecting on the case years later. And there were a few things that were interesting about the audio and also the court documents that went along with the case. Three things I would draw your attention to. First, she mentioned in this interview that she forever lost her faith in polygraph tests because her client, the accused rapist, had passed his polygraph test. And she sort of chuckled about that and said that she no longer really believed in lie detector tests because it was quite clear that she thought him to be guilty. And some legal experts have said that was a breach of client-attorney confidentiality ethics because she revealed the confidential results of a polygraph test, especially in the context of intimating that her client was guilty. So that's point one. Point two is when she's discussing how he ended up mostly getting away with it, in her mind, was the police made a grievous error. They lost the DNA evidence that proved he was guilty. And she ended up talking about her job was to prevent a travesty of justice. And when she said travesty of justice, she actually laughed out loud in acknowledgement that, again, that he was guilty and that she didn't believe it was a travesty of justice. So she sort of laughed through this comment, which some people thought was a bit odd and unusual given the real gravity of, child rape. And finally, in the court documents, Hillary Clinton had attested to a number of statements that she was trying to use to justify a psych evaluation of the victim, who was 12 years old, accusing her or attesting to unnamed sources suggesting that this girl had a history of coming on to older men and emotional instability. It was very clear that she was setting up a defense to attack the victim's credibility, the victim's stability, and that sort of thing, which would potentially conflict with her very carefully cultivated image of a champion of women and girls. She ended up not having to go down that route because the police made the giant mistake that she had her laugh over in the audio, but it was still revealing the tactics she was at least maneuvering to employ against this victim at the time.
That's amazing to me, and this happens with most assaults on women, is that it becomes the woman's responsibility to prove that she was attacked rather than the the other way around. It's just amazing to me that how the victim becomes the accused in most of these cases, and that's why they're so difficult to prosecute. And as you say, then here we have Hillary Clinton, the champion of women, not only defending this person, but seeming to be fairly callous toward the victim and even toward the procedure. Real cynical and callousness here.
Yeah, and I would say, this victim by no means was a woman. This was a child, and again, this guy deserved a defense in our system. The fact that she took the case is not an issue for me. I think that there are political vulnerabilities about the way she talked about the case, which was just a little bit creepy. Sort of, if I had defended a child rapist and basically gotten him off, even if I was at peace with myself from an ethical and moral perspective, I don't think I could imagine myself laughing about it. I think that's unusual and may not sit particularly well with a lot of people. And incidentally, the woman, she's still alive. She's much older today. I think she's 57 years old. I don't have her exact age here, but she declined to be interviewed for this particular story by the Free Beacon because she had been, in her words, misquoted when someone else wrote about this in 2008, a story that was mostly buried in New York Newsday. She didn't want to give any direct quotes to the Free Beacon, although she did indicate that she has an enduring hostility toward Hillary Clinton. And then once the story was published, and once the victim heard the audio of Hillary, she finally decided to break her silence, and she came forward and gave an extensive interview with the Daily Beast, a reporter named Josh Rogan. And in that interview, she just unloaded on Hillary, saying that she took her through hell, lied about her like a dog. That was her quote. Said that Hillary Clinton was not an honest person. The representations about these allegations that she had been coming on to older men and had a history of instability. She said those were absolutely untrue. And this woman said when she read the story and heard the audio, she sat down and cried. She was basically traumatized again by this whole situation. She's had a very difficult life, never married, lives alone, struggled with addiction, was in and out of jail because of her drug issues throughout her life. You know, this is someone who is now willing to speak up and speak out, and I'd imagine that is someone that the Clinton camp would prefer stay quiet.
Well, it's interesting to me how much this harkens back to Bill Clinton's crime against Monica Lewinsky, and that's all I can say is that was a crime, because even though she was of an age of consent, she was still a young girl that was victimized by a man who had power. It's just amazing to me. Do you draw any similarities between these two things?
Well, what I think is interesting, Sharon, is this morning I've been filling in this week on a talk show here in Washington, D.C., the Chris Plant Show on WMAL with Mary Catherine Ham, and we had the editor-in-chief of the Free Beacon, which broke this story, on with us this morning, and he brought this up, this comparison, saying the way that the Clinton machine attacked Bill Clinton's female accusers, whether it was Juanita Broderick or Kathleen Willey or Paula Jones, was a combination of, the term was sluts and nuts. They tried to paint them as promiscuous women who shouldn't be taken seriously or weren't credible, or crazy people who were trying to bring down a powerful man. And that was generally the strategy. And his name's Matt Continetti, he made the point that here was Hillary Clinton before she was married to Bill, in her defense of this child rapist, setting the table to accuse or suggest and ask for a psychological evaluation based on unsourced evidence that she had come on to older men in the past, which she vehemently denies to this day, which is sort of the slut side of it, and to have a psychological exam to see if she was stable, the nut side of it. So there was a slut and nut defense tactic that Hillary Clinton seemed to be teeing up before the police screwed everything up against this 12-year-old girl in 1975. And the same playbook, interestingly, was employed on numerous occasions against a number of Bill Clinton's accusers decades later.
Guy, we have to go to a break right now. Can you stay through the break with us here on Conservative Commandos Radio Show?
Sure.
All right, we are going to take a break right now. You're listening to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Engel and Rick Trader, coming to you from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, the way we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and around the world on the Internet. Please don't go away. We're speaking with Guy Benson, talking about Hillary Clinton and her defense of an accused rapist 40 years ago, a man that raped a 12-year-old girl. Hillary defended her. Please don't go away. Sharon and I will be right back.
They say I'm nasty, but oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the Sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Real quick program note, if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening, please log on to patriotsride.org. That's patriotsride.org. And at 5 p.m. when we end our live broadcast, if you'd like to hear a replay of yesterday's show, log on to cprworldwidemedia.com. And we're speaking with Guy Benson. He's the political editor of townhall.com and a Fox News contributor. And we're speaking with Guy about an article he wrote on Town Hall, Rape Victim, Hillary Clinton Took Me Through Hell. Guy, thanks for holding through the break. We appreciate your time.
Sure.
Guy, I think why this is important today, because she, Hillary Clinton, is the Democrat candidate in waiting for the presidential nomination. And we've had Kathleen Woolley on as a guest here before, and Kathleen Woolley pointed out that Hillary is truly the Warren woman for her attitude, and as you say here, that the nuts and sluts attitude, and that it seems to be that there is a definite pattern that Hillary has, that when you connect all the dots, like her defense of Bill against people like Kathleen Woolley and Anita Broderick, and now this 52-year-old woman who was a rape victim at 12 years old, saying that Hillary Clinton, in essence, and she doesn't say it, I'm paraphrasing it, but has ruined her life. So, Guy, can you see the connection that I'm making, that it is truly Hillary Clinton that is the true Warren woman?
Well, I think that that's definitely what some of her opponents are going to bring up. I don't think we've probably heard the end of this story just yet. But what I think is actually very interesting about the response to the original report that I referenced coming from the Washington Free Beacon and Alana Goodman, once that went to press and it started generating some attention, and it was talked about on national television and certainly in talk radio and around the blogosphere, the University of Arkansas's library, the provost or whomever runs the show over there, contacted the Free Beacon and informed them that their access to the library had been revoked, and insisted that they immediately take down the audio that they had found completely legally in their exploration and their research in this special Clinton collection. And this is a public library.
Right.
The person who sent that, essentially that cease and desist order banning them from entering the library in the future, happens to be a Hillary Clinton donor. And I think the interesting lesson is, here we have the Clinton world, however you want to loosely define it, circling the wagons, and not just going into reflexive defense mode of Hillary, but actually trying to punish the people who exposed this story just for doing their job. This is classic, straight-up journalism. This is someone, a reporter, going down, doing the legwork, finding something that is newsworthy and interesting about one of the most high-profile political figures in the country, not doing any sort of subterfuge or breaking any sort of rules. They're claiming that they didn't sign a proper permission form or something like that. But, we've seen from WikiLeaks and some of the NSA documents from Edward Snowden and others. There are lots of very newsworthy things that are done in much shadier ways that certainly do not ever get some sort of permission slip that is counted as legitimate or newsworthy journalism. This was classic investigative journalism by Alana Goodman and the Free Beacon, and the fact that a Hillary donor at a public library thought that he could intimidate this publication to take down the perfectly reasonably obtained audio that they had put up and to ban them from the public library in the future is pretty extraordinary. And the Free Beacon, of course, is not taking it lying down. Their lawyer sent back a pretty withering response to the library, and they've garnered actually a fair amount of sympathy even among the mainstream media, because this is very clearly attempted to be an anti-press, First Amendment gag order. But it shows you sort of the impulses that partisans have on behalf of the Clintons.
Guy, it sounds like the Arkansas Mafia at work, but let me ask you about the recording itself. Did the University of Arkansas claim copyright ownership of that material?
I don't even know what their justification or their grounds for asking it to be taken down was. It was their request or demand was dismissed out of hand and refused by the Free Beacon. It's up on YouTube now, and this was an audio recording that had been taped in the mid-'80s by a reporter for a story on Hillary Clinton that he never ended up writing. Right. So this was just an audio tape that ended up in these archives and just sat there unmolested, undiscovered for many, many years. Alana Goodman found it, went through the, I'm sure, tedious process of listening and reading a bunch of stuff that was totally irrelevant, found this thing and reported on it. And that is what we call journalism. And I would be very surprised if this incident or this episode really badly damaged Hillary Clinton's, I think, inevitable presidential run. But I think it will cause her some headaches. This victim appears more emboldened to speak out. Her, attack the victim approach that she telegraphed with her psych evaluation request cuts against the women pride, female solidarity thing that she's definitely going to be relying on heavily in her campaign. The somewhat strange, inappropriate laughter about the way that the case went down and the child rapist got off.
We all know that laugh, don't we, Guy? We all know that Hillary Clinton laugh, don't we?
Yeah, although this one was
it's kind of a cackle.
This one was less of a forced kind of cackle, which I know that's a loaded description, but right. It's a weird sort of chuckling and a cavalier attitude towards a 12-year-old girl who had her innocence robbed from her by a rapist when she was in middle school. Yeah. And that is, that's not funny.
Guy Benson, political editor of townhall.com, I want to thank you for coming on to Conservative Commandos radio show. Guy, where could our audience go to follow your writings on Town Hall, get this article, and also listen to your radio show?
Sure. Well, I would recommend just going to townhall.com. A lot of my work is on the front page. You can access my archive of all the stuff I've written right through there. I'd also recommend for people who are on Twitter, I'm quite active on Twitter at Guy P. Benson, and that's where I promote when I'm going to be on Fox News and that sort of thing. So Twitter and townhall.com, probably the best.
Guy Benson, thank you for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Take care. God bless.
Bye-bye.
Sharon, and I think the important thing here is because Hillary Clinton is the presumptive nominee for president, we must vet her. A lot of my friends, a lot of my political friends, a lot of my Facebook friends are still on the let's tear down the Barack Obama bandwagon. I think it's a little too late for that. Hillary, we're stuck with this guy. We got another 2 years with him. But what we have to do, Sharon, is we have to vet Hillary Clinton. Very important.
I think you're right, and I think that's exactly what we've been doing here on Conservative Commandos Radio Show by bringing on these guests who have, like Guy has said, we're just exposing who she really is. And, you know, we talked in our first interview about...
Hey, Sharon, I hate to interrupt, but we got to go to a break. Hold on, please.
I will.
All right, you're listening to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Engel and Rick Trader, coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360 in Philly, around the world on the internet via CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, VigilantLibertyRadio.us, and don't forget you can hear our show anytime, day or night, from any phone by calling 832-999-1199.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Viden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittlesportshop.com.
The Obama attack on our Constitution continues. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com and join J.D. Benier and Christina Lamb and hundreds of Reagan conservative commandos who demand our country return to its founding documents and principles. We are part of the nation's oldest and largest GOP volunteer organization, the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. We register voters, endorse conservative candidates, and dig deep to give you the truth on the big issues. We are fighting to do what Lincoln proclaimed 150 years ago. Let the people know the facts and the nation will be free. Help support the Conservative Commando Radio Show with your donation today. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com. INRASuperPAC.com.
Now hear this. Man your battle stations.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Engel and Rick Trader. And if you would like to hear a broadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening Eastern Time, log in to www.patriotsride.org. For a rebroadcast of yesterday's Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 5 p.m. this evening, please go to www.cprworldwidemedia.com and click on the Listen Live link. And you can also listen to repeat broadcasts of today's show tomorrow afternoon by going to www.vigilantlibertyradio.us, and please click on the Listen Live link. Now you can listen to Conservative Commandos Radio Show at any time, any day, by calling 832-999-1199. Call using your cell phone at no extra cost. Use your mobile minutes. Thank you so much for joining us, Rick and I, here on Conservative Commandos Radio Show. We do have our next guest, William A. Jacobson, who is a clinical professor of law and director of Securities Law Clinic at Cornell Law. He is a 1981 graduate of Hamilton College and a 1984 graduate of Harvard Law School. Professor Jacobson also is the founder and publisher of two popular websites, Legal Insurrection and College Insurrection. Bill, welcome to Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it's our pleasure and our honor to have you here. And we want to talk to you a little bit about the media aide's left smear of Governor Walker. So we're talking about Governor Scott Walker and how the media is aiding the left to smear him. Let's talk just a little bit about that.
Sure. What has happened is Scott Walker, ever since he stood up to the unions in Wisconsin and signed into law the collective bargaining agreement, and even somewhat before that, has been the object of a lot of hate from the progressive movement. And because of that, he's been subject to investigations and various sort of accusations that he somehow engaged in criminal conduct, and none of those have ever been proven. And in fact, what has made the news the last several months is that two judges, one a state court judge and one a federal court judge, have found that the accusations that Governor Walker and his supporters violated the campaign laws are not legally valid. That even if everything the prosecutors accused them of doing actually happened, it wouldn't be a violation of law. And these are in what we call the so-called John Doe proceedings in Wisconsin, a special secret sort of investigation. And so that was fine. He's been found that nothing he did was wrong, et cetera, et cetera. Then what happened is last week sometime, the federal appeals court released some of the filings from courts, that they no longer have to be under seal. And in some of those filings, you could see that what the prosecutors had accused Governor Walker of doing, and the big phrase in there was criminal scheme, that they accused him of running a criminal scheme. Now, of course, two judges have found that it's not a criminal scheme, but all the media reported on, headline after headline, did a Google search. I mean, the entire first page of results was prosecutors accuse Governor Walker of engaging in a criminal scheme. And then that becomes the narrative, and it's an untrue narrative. And then you have to read into the article, and some of the articles didn't even mention that two judges had looked at it and said that there's simply nothing wrong with what he did. Assuming he did all the things they said he did, it was not illegal. And some of the articles you'd have to read 3, 4, 5 paragraphs into it. Others never even mentioned the judge's findings at all. And as we know, that really it's the headline that creates the impression, because a lot of people don't want to read 4 or 5 paragraphs into an article to find out what happened. All they remember is what they saw in the headline. And so that's really how the media, I call it media malpractice. Maybe it's worse than malpractice. Maybe it was intentional. They all were in a big rush to put in the headline criminal scheme, but they weren't so much in a rush to put in the headline that 2 judges have found there was no criminal scheme.
Right. We'll never see the exoneration from these charges, and as you say, it seems to be some kind of propaganda agenda that the media has against seemingly folks that are innocent. So why would they attack Governor Walker? I mean, why is there such an incensed upheaval in the media and on the left against Governor Walker? What do you think? What's their motivation here?
Well, what he did in Wisconsin presents a couple of problems for the progressive movement. The first thing he did is be successful, and he's successful in a free market, capitalist, non-union sort of way that they've had pretty good success in Wisconsin, and he's held the line on that. But the collective bargaining law literally almost drove people to insanity. I mean, when I say to insanity, one photo that they took over the State House in Wisconsin, the protesters, and I have one image in my mind, which is two protesters in protest locked their heads to the metal railing with those U-shaped bicycle locks. And, I mean, that's how insane they were driven. And the reason they were driven insane is that public sector unions have been a very important source of power for Democrats in general, but particularly the progressive movement. And it's important to them in a number of ways. One, it provides, patronage jobs, cronyism sort of jobs, provides a lot of employment for people who agree with them politically. But even more important, it provided a lot of money, because what happened is the public sector unions would essentially have a monopoly, and whoever was employed would have to join these unions, which kept tens of millions of dollars flowing into the union coffers. And who are the big donors to Democrats? The unions. So by passing the collective bargaining law, it not only hit the people who are left-wing supporters, progressive supporters, it also hit the Democratic Party in the pocketbook. And that's what you've seen happen in Wisconsin, and that was their big fear. The big fear was that if people weren't forced to join the union, if they were given the choice whether to do it or not, they wouldn't do it. And that's, in fact, what happened in Wisconsin. Very relatively small number of people, small percentage joined. So that's what they consider unforgivable about Scott Walker, is that he attacked an economic problem, but it's an economic problem that hit the Democratic Party in the campaign contribution, pocketbook. And that's what I think they were so upset about. And there is nobody probably as hated among conservative politicians as Scott Walker, particularly for that reason. Now, he's not the most ideological person. There may be people they disagree with on the right for ideological reasons, but no one has been as successful as Scott Walker, and that's why they hate him so much.
Now, would you classify Wisconsin as a conservative state, as a red state?
I don't think so at all. I think that it's gone, a couple of different directions in terms of national politics, but I think most people would consider it more of a blue state or a mixed state, a purple state. So it is not a red state. And that's, I think, the other thing that frustrated them, that he's somebody who not only got elected governor, and he's not the first Republican to get elected governor, but he passed this law. He was part of a movement that established a legislative majority in both houses there. And then he survived a recall. I mean, not only did he win, not only did they take over the State House and try to literally shout everybody down and intimidate people, when that didn't work, they launched a recall effort against him in 2012, in which national money and national resources and people on the ground poured into Wisconsin that they were finally going to get him out of office. And, and they didn't. He survived the recall. In fact, he won the recall election by a bigger percentage than he had won his original election. And that just drove them crazy. And so they really have it out for him. So the first opportunity they could get to try to paint him as a criminal, even though judges have found otherwise, they took. And I think their sympathizers in the media took that. The Democratic Party in Wisconsin took that. I was just online today. I think I got linked over to the Democratic Party website in Wisconsin, and they have a big graphic about how he was got elected through criminal conspiracies and things like that. I mean, his success and his steadfastness has literally driven these people crazy.
We're talking with William A. Jacobson, who is a clinical professor of law and director of Securities Law Clinic at Cornell Law. Bill, can you stay with us through the break? We have to take a break.
Absolutely.
We've been talking about Governor Scott Walker and why the media and the Democrats hate him so much. And we're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos radio studio at WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with our new internet broadcast partners, CPR, worldwidemedia.com, patriotsride.org, and vigilantlibertyradio.us. Now you can listen to Conservative Commandos radio show at any time, any day, by calling 832-999-1199. Call
when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the Sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. And program note, if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening Eastern Time, log on to patriotsride.org. For a rebroadcast of yesterday's Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 5 p.m. this evening, when we end our live broadcast, log on to CPRWorldwideMedia.com. Click on the Listen Live link. You could also hear a repeat of today's show tomorrow afternoon at VigilantLibertyRadio.us. Our guest this segment is William A. Jacobson. He is a clinical professor of law and director of the Securities Law Clinic at Cornell Law. He is also the founder and publisher of two popular websites, Legal Insurrection and College Insurrection. Bill, thanks for holding through the break. We do appreciate your time.
Oh, great to be here.
Bill, you know, when I was listening to you and Sharon talking about these allegations that were made about Scott Walker, this criminal scheme used over and over and over again kind of reminded me of Raymond Donovan, who was the Secretary of Transportation during the Reagan administration. He was indicted, he was tried, he was found not guilty, and I'll never forget what he said coming out of the courthouse. Where do I go to get my reputation back? And that's what these liberal groups try to do, Bill. They try to scandalize you to the point where you can never get your reputation back. And I think that's what they're trying to do here with Scott Walker. They see him as a very strong potential Republican candidate for the presidency, and that's what they seem to do. They always seem to go after the front runner. They keep trying to knock off the front runners until they get to run against the candidate of their choosing. Your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. That's, I think, a strategy of, killing the baby in the cradle sort of thing, that you try to get and damage a candidate's reputation before the candidate is really ready to deal with it, so that by the time the potential candidate organizes a campaign staff, organizes a communications team, by the time all that gets done, they've been so damaged in the public eye that it's too late for them to recover. And that's something that you're seeing all the time. And in fact, they're going after Scott Walker in the media, also playing the race card on him. There was a prominent article in a magazine called The New Republic, which may not have a huge readership, and I mean it has a significant readership, but it's pretty well known and it gets picked up a lot of places, in which they essentially accused his supporters of being racist. They said that the way that he was so successful in Wisconsin was playing on white fears and things like that. And so you're not only seeing the criminal scheme smear used against him, they're also trying to portray, if not him, at least the people who support him as being racist. And that's very, very typical of what goes on in these things. And you're right, I do remember I'm old enough to remember Raymond J. Donovan also, to which department, I think he said, do I go to get my reputation back, after, everybody presumed that he was guilty and the jury came back not guilty. But by then, it had been a year or 18 months of every single day in the newspaper that he was essentially part of some criminal enterprise before he entered government. I think it was construction in New Jersey or something like that. And that's what happens, and that's exactly what they're doing. They've tried to do it to Ted Cruz already. They've tried to do it to Marco Rubio. It's what I call the crazying of a candidate. They will try to present somebody as being crazy, out of the mainstream, criminal, racist, etc., so that by the time 2015 rolls around and people are starting to announce that they're going to run for president, that the public image has already been set. And that's exactly what's going on now with Scott Walker.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I've looked at Scott Walker, and I think he has some real potential for president. He has that executive experience as a governor. He's in a blue state, which means he's had to work with Democrats to get some really tough laws passed, and he's been successful. And he hasn't had to compromise on getting those things through. And then he's attacked Democrat strongholds successfully, as well as when we talked about this union hatred of him, because he has been so successful. But in our first questioning there, you mentioned that conservatives might have some problems supporting Scott Walker for president. What might those things be?
I'm not sure that so much conservatives would have a problem. I don't know about his, social positions and things like that. I think that, I think he would be a strong candidate. I think the sort of reforms he's made there. I think there might be an issue on whether, what his position on immigration is. I'm not that familiar with it right now, but I think he is in favor of some sort of, quote-unquote pathway to citizenship. So I think there might be some issues there, but I think what you're going to see with any Republican candidate, you're not going to find the perfect candidate, and people will have to make a choice whether that person's positions outweigh other good things they've done.
So if in your scanning the horizon here, you've talked about several that we might want to think about in 2016. Where do you place Scott Walker in this whole spectrum?
Well, I think it's a little too early. He still has to win an election in November. And I think part of what's going on here is he's up for re-election. And so I think that the Democrats think if they can defeat him in this governor's election, that they will essentially knock him out as a presidential candidate. So I think they're putting a lot of effort into defeating him in November, and I think a lot of money is going to flow there. And I think you also have to view what's going on now as part of that effort. Assuming that he survives and gets reelected, then I think he's certainly in the top tier of candidates because he survived the recall election, and because he's been focused on so intensively, and because he's been investigated repeatedly by Democratic prosecutors who've come up with nothing, he's been vetted pretty well. Now, there's no vetting of a candidate quite like a presidential campaign. But in terms of somebody who we're unlikely to see any big surprises from, I think that, he's there. So he's gone through a national vetting, even though he's a governor, of the intensity that most governors have not seen. So I think that automatically, combined with his successes, the collective bargaining reforms, the fact that Wisconsin is doing pretty well as an economy, they're now running a budget surplus, and he's cutting taxes because they're back in the black instead of the red. I think all of those things make him a very attractive candidate. And frankly, the fact that he's not the most flashy candidate may not be a bad thing in this environment where we've had now 6 years or almost 6 years of a flashy candidate who's done so much damage to the country. So, I think he's going to be in the top tier. I don't know if he's the top 1 or 2 or 3, but I think he's somebody who will be very seriously considered if he chooses to run.
Now, you have two popular websites, Legal Insurrection and College Insurrection. Those are kind of interesting titles. Tell me how you came up with that and what does it mean?
Sure. It's so when I started this, which was in October of 2008, so about 3 weeks before the election, I started Legal Insurrection. And I had not been very political before that. Obviously, I had opinions, but I was very frustrated with the direction I saw the country going and what I termed Obama mania, that people were just delusional, not seeing, I think, reality. And so I was feeling the word insurrection came to mind. It wasn't planned. I didn't have a consultant who told me to do this. And then I looked it up, and by definition, an insurrection is illegal. So I said, well, it's not really a good idea maybe for me, particularly given my position, just to have a website called Insurrection. So I said, well, why don't I call it Legal Insurrection? And that's what I called it. And it kind of captured for me the frustrations that I was feeling. It also, on a subject matter, kind of captured what I do. Since I do teach law, I am a law professor, there's a legal aspect to the blog that we question a lot of the things that are going on in the legal system, and we evaluate those. So it just seemed to me a name that fit very nicely for what I wanted to accomplish. And then we started College Insurrection 2 years later to cover what was going on in campuses. And that's really how I came about it. And it's a name which I think intrigues a lot of people. It's a name which has really stuck. And so that's how I got the name.
Well, it harkens back to civil disobedience, to Martin Luther King, where, we're supposed to stand up against injustice, but in a legal way, using the rights that we have as citizens to do that. And that's why I think it captured my attention, was because it just seems like almost the American thing to do. I want to ask you, you mentioned in your profession, now Cornell University doesn't strike me as a real conservative.
Hey, Sharon, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we are up against the end of our show. William, I want to thank you for joining us today. Once again, please give out your websites.
Sure. It's Legal Insurrection. It's also College Insurrection. Or if you just Google my name, William Jacobson, you'll find it pretty quickly.
And where can people go to read your article?
Sure, it's legalinsurrection.com or collegeinsurrection.com.
Okay, same place. All right, William, I want to thank you for joining us. Sharon, I want to thank you for sitting in as my co-host today. But for right now, we're out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless, and we'll see you tomorrow on the radio.
Thank you for listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show. Huge thanks to our co-hosts, contributors, patrons, callers, and our friends at WNJC 1360 and WIFI 1460, where we broadcast live every Monday through Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern and 2 to 4 p.m. Central. Look for us on the internet at www.ccrshow.com. Until next time, we are the Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.